everyone, it's Benitez here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's WTF episode, I'm going to show you how you can correctly display dates when you're using a create HTML action in Power Automate with Flow. I'm going to go through a quick recap of what I covered in my last WTF episode, and then we're going to jump straight into Power Automate with Flow. In my last WTF episode, I shared with you how you can retrieve the most recent or oldest records using Power Automate with Flow, and I also showed how you can send the information returned in the format of a table in an email to the contact. What you would have noticed towards the end is how the date displayed a bit funky, and that's because Flow treats date and time as UTC like any other application and system out there. So when you want to display it in an email or even back into your model-driven app in CDS, we need to do some conversion. So in this scenario, we need to convert from UTC to the desired destination time zone. So without further ado, let's jump straight into Power Automate with Flow. I have two options that I'm going to go through with you today. The first one is suitable for organizations who have customers in one time zone. An example is New Zealand. New Zealand has one time zone, and if there are organizations who are sending to their customers who are based in New Zealand, this is a valid option. So simply, we need to use an expression that has the convert from UTC function. So if you want to know more information about the convert from UTC function, there is this docs.microsoft.com article which I will provide in the YouTube description of this WTF vlog. And basically what you need is a timestamp, so the date and time value, the destination time zone, and the format. So I'm going to switch over to Notepad++. And this is what my expression looks like that I'm using in that create HTML action. We are simply calling the created on date value, which is from the CDS list records action, and I'm typing in the time zone name, so it's called New Zealand Standard Time, and then I'm saying that this is the date format that I want to be the value to be displayed in. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to explain the time zone names. So in the docs.microsoft.com article, it's going to point to this other article which will list time zone names. Now, I just want to do a bit of a warning message right now, because if you use some of the time zone names, it won't match the Windows time zone ID value that that Power Automate with Flow expects. An example is the Eastern Standard Time Zone for Australia. You'll notice that it has periods in here. If you were to copy this and use this value, you're actually going to run into an error in your flow because it doesn't like this value. I know, even though this article is pointing to that list, it's going to throw an error because it doesn't like it. So the list of time zones that I actually use is from a different article where it's not going to cause that flow to error out. So for example, in here, that same time zone name, this is what it looks like. It doesn't have the dots, and it will be reflected in the Windows time zone ID property that Power Automate with Flow is expecting, which I'll show you in option 2. Okay, so going back to option 1, basically when you use this expression, then your dates in your email will be correctly displayed. I'm going to switch over to my model-driven app, and we're going to go ahead and run that flow. So we're going to run that option 1 flow. Okay, so let's check out the run history, and we'll see that it has successfully ran. When we switch over to our mailbox, we're going to now see the dates displaying correctly in the email. So that is option 1. Option 2 is more suitable for organizations, for example, enterprise clients who have customers around the world. So this option is valid because it's actually going to work out the time zone name based on the address information of the contact. These 3 steps that I'm going to go through with you right now will be very familiar to those of you who have watched my previous WTF episodes, because I've gone through this before. So I'm going to cover this very, very lightly. Okay, so in Power Automate with Flow, there is a Bing Maps action that will identify the latitude and longitude coordinates based on address information. So in this action, I'm using the address one fields from CDS for that contact, and then we're using an HTTPS action, which again is using a Bing Maps API, where we are referencing the latitude coordinates and longitude coordinates returned from the Bing Maps action up here. And don't forget that you do need a Bing Maps basic key, I believe is that what they call it. And then the next action is a compose action, where we are referencing the Windows time zone ID property in order to get the time zone name of the contact based on their location, which we have identified using their address one information. Once again, I'm going to switch over to Notepad++ to explain this. So this is what the response looks like when that HTTPS action has successfully been completed. So the response it will receive is this, and what I've highlighted in here is a Windows time zone ID property. So this is how you can identify the name of the time zone. And so the expression is going to look like this. And so to explain it, it's basically saying that the Windows time zone ID is in the time zone object, which is an array. And because we know that we're only ever retrieving the first row in the array, that's why we use a 0. So the time zone object is in the time zone at location, whose parent is in the resources object, whose parent object is resource set. So that's basically what this expression is saying, and that's what we are using in the compose action. In our create HTML action, the difference that we're doing in here this time is, rather than entering the time zone name manually, we're now dynamically referencing the output value from this action in here. Once again, I'm going to switch over to my model-driven app, and we're going to go ahead and run that second flow. So now when we check the run history, we should see that it has successfully completed. And when we go to our sent items mailbox, we can see that the dates are now correctly displaying. The difference that you'll notice this time is because I'm using the local time zone of the recipient based on their address one information, the date is now displaying a day earlier compared to when I was using option 1, where I explicitly entered the New Zealand Standard Time. Now that's because the New Zealand time zone is pretty much like quite a few hours ahead of the Pacific Standard Time zone. And so this is why you're seeing it a day earlier. So that is how you can correctly display dates in an HTML table in your email when you're using the create HTML action. So the first option is valid for organizations whose customers are in the same time zone, so in a single time zone. And option 2 is more suitable for organizations such as global enterprise customers whose customers are around the world. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I have more WTF episodes coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Turn up. Let's go.